Welcome to the Book Podcast, where we discuss books about the book, the Bible, with your hosts, Scott Moffat and Gabriel Penfield.
We go as deep as we can go, look as hard as we can look, but we only scratch the surface of the meaning of the book. We only scratch the surface of the meaning of the book.
Back in the 1960s, I remember as a teenager collecting magazines about the huge life events that took place in America and the world. I have Life magazine covers that cover the Kennedy assassination, the death of Winston Churchill, and a special edition cover of Life magazine, which detailed the 1967 war between Israel and its Arab neighbors. As a 15-year-old secular kid from Chicago, I knew nothing about the history of Israel and its ongoing fight with its regional neighbors. I was aware of the history of World War II since my father was a veteran of the Pacific War, and I also had a great interest in the early American history. That led me to collecting these magazine covers. So, unaware of the anti-Semitism that has gripped the world since God called Abraham and formed a Hebrew nation, today we look at that topic, and I've become more familiar with it over the past 20, 30 years. But today we have an expert with us on the two topics that we will look at, the topic of anti-Semitism and the end times. We have with us Olivier Melnick, and we will examine his new book, just released, I think, a couple of weeks ago, Antisemitism in the End Times. Olivier was raised in a secular Jewish home in the fashionable city of Paris, France. This followed on the heels of the Second World War. I believe both of your parents were Holocaust survivors. Is that correct?
My dad was in Paris during the war, but my mother was a Holocaust survivor, and I can tell the story later if we have time.
Mm-hmm. And I assume that affected your upbringing immensely.
Very much so.
Since coming to the United States, however, Olivier has earned a BA from Moody Bible Institute and Dallas Seminary. He earned a master's there. I am a graduate of both institutions as well. And he has authored 7 books, including They Have Conspired Against You, a novel, The Rabbi's Triad, and his most recent book, as I pointed out, The End Times Anti-Semitism, a new chapter in the longest hatred. He writes for several news sites, including World Net Daily, Times of Israel, and the Christian News Network. Olivier operates his own website, newantisemitism.com, and has served for 27 years with Chosen People's Ministry until he founded his own ministry about 2 years ago, called Shalom and Messiah Ministries. Olivier and his wife, Ellen, raised 2 children, and he lives in Rockwell, Texas now. And he's going to be with us for the next hour or so. So thank you for joining us, Olivier. Appreciate it.
Thank you. By the way, the website that you give, the current website is actually shalomandmessiah.com. The other one is no longer, this is an older website that you must have had an older.
Okay.
So shalomandmessiah.com.
Good. Thank you. I'm Scott Moffat, your host, and I'm joined by my grandson, Gabriel Penfield. There he is. He is the field director for the Friends of Israel in Dallas, and he is also a third-year student at Dallas Seminary, I believe. Before I forget, let me remind you to like, to share, to comment, to do whatever you want with our website. It helps us immensely if you do so. The Book Podcast, that's our name. And today we look at anti-Semitism in the end times. Olivier, let me begin with this question. Why did you choose to write this book at this time? Were the events of October 7th, were they the genesis for this project, or had you had it on your mind for a long time?
It kind of happened somewhat simultaneously. And to be honest with you, I think I started slightly before that. This book, the Anti-Semitism in the End Times, is actually a major update to the other one, End Times Anti-Semitism, the latest chapter. This is the book that I wrote to. I started writing on it, writing for it. And then I realized, okay, so the October 7th happened, so I needed to add more to it. So eventually it goes all the way to the end of 2024. So there's about 30%, a little more than 30% new material in it. And it's going to help people understand the situation in the world with anti-Semitism. But it definitely covers October 7th, which I think, well, I know now we know it was a turning point for Jewish people, for Israel, and that a point of no return, if you really want to know.
Yep. And we know that recently, we're recording this in October 2025. We're in 2025 now.
Yeah.
We recently had a big peace deal where the remaining living hostages were returned to Israel. So we praise God for that. But could you define anti-Semitism for us? Is it just like, is it restricted? Is it broad? And how does that connect to maybe Psalm 83?
Okay, so anti-Semitism, I over the last 2.5 decades, I have come up with my own definition, and I guess a lot of the definitions look alike. What I like about the one that I offer is the first two words that are very important because I don't find them anywhere else in the definitions that I've looked at. And the definition goes like this: Anti-Semitism is the irrational and satanic hatred of Israel and the Jews,
Definitely.
characterized by thoughts, words, and deeds against them. And the reason why I actually did not insert those two words, irrational and satanic, until probably maybe 12 years ago, halfway through my 25 years of research and writing on the topic. But I really started to realize that there was nothing rational about it, and that for it to be so irrational but so accepted by the world, it had to come from a supernatural source, which is Satan. And we can get back to that. I'm sure we will in the program when it comes to the end times prophetic connection and the agenda that Satan has had to destroy the Jews throughout his entire life. And knowing that at the end of the 7-year tribulation, the Jews are going to call on one who they have pierced. They're going to say, "Blessed is them, blessed is you, comes in the name of the Lord." Satan goes into the lake of fire. He doesn't want to go there. So he's trying to keep the Jews at bay, or just getting rid of them so they cannot call Yeshua Jesus. So that's the definition: irrational, satanic, and it's after the Jews and after Israel. And it's, people think, say, or even, and now it's more actions than ever before, especially since October 7th. Now, how does that connect to Psalm 83? Well, in several ways. First of all, in Psalm 83, which is, by the way, the psalm that gave me my inspiration for my first book, They Have Conspired Against You, because verse 5 of Psalm 83 is just that. But it says in the first few verses, "O God, do not remain at rest, do not be silent, and O God, do not be quiet. For behold, your enemies roar, and those who hate you have lifted up their heads. They make shrewd plans against your people," that's the Jewish people, "and conspire together against your treasured ones. They have said, 'Come and let us wipe them as a nation, that the name of Israel be remembered no more. For they have conspired together with one heart against you. They cut a covenant.'" So the connection with Psalm 83 is that anti-Semitism, it tells us here, you cannot say "I love God" and hate the Jews in the same sentence, because it says here, when you hate Israel, when you want to destroy Israel, you're really conspiring against the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So anti-Semitism should not be an option for Christians. Now, on paper, this looks good and pretty simple. In real life, it's not that simple. Now, I don't know if you wanted me to give you my take on Psalm 83 as far as, is it a real war or not? I don't know if this was part of the question. But since you didn't ask, I'll give it to you for free. I don't think it's a physical war. I think, and I could be wrong, and it's not a
Do you think
church.
it's prophetic?
I think it is a. I think it is, it is a time where Asaph, who wrote that psalm, um,
Mhm.
was crying out to God, and basically he's listing all the people groups that are all around Israel, and that were probably the people group that he at the time maybe was aware of, and it's almost like some, I when I try to explain to people why I think it's more like a literary device. It's Asaph going like, this group is after Israel, this group's after Israel, the whole world is after us. It's, it's like almost like a figure of speech. And I think he's just crying out to God, going like, the enemies of Israel hate us. They go after us. When they go after us, they go after you. But I don't think there's enough war language in the Hebrew to validate that it is actually an upcoming war, like you would have in the
Mm.
case of Gog and Magog in Ezekiel 38. So
Yep.
that's, and people are divided on that. Yeah, I know people that have spent their entire ministry speaking on the topic of Psalm 83 being a real war. I won't name names, but you probably know what I'm talking about. And so it shouldn't be a divisive factor for believers. It's just a different view. It doesn't take away the cry out of Asaph to God, who's asking God to help him in the case of this, at the time, for Asaph, what you would consider a global anti-Semitism, because those are all the people around Israel.
Right. And we could go a lot more into Psalm 83, but we're not going to. We want to hit the high points of your book to raise the interest of people in order for them to pick up a copy and read it. Again, it's Anti-Semitism in the End Times, which we believe we're living in. So what I'd like to ask you is, can you divide anti-Semitism into classical and new anti-Semitism? Can you tell us what the differences are between those two, or how they relate to one another? And when did the new anti-Semitism begin?
Okay, so I divide really anti-Semitism into four categories: classical anti-Semitism, new anti-Semitism, end times anti-Semitism, and there's even one more category that we could call tribulation anti-Semitism. So classical anti-Semitism is the anti-Semitism that developed from pretty much the time of the closing of the biblical canon all the way to the Holocaust and maybe 10, 20 years after. And that started as theological anti-Judaism. It was just a difference between Christians and Jews, us and them. We don't believe the same way. We don't worship the same way. We don't have the same books of the Bible. We don't have the same liturgy. We don't have the same practices, customs, and so it started as a sectarian division that was not really a big deal at first, but then with the advent of a different approach to the Bible, which was a non-dispensationalist, non-literal, not grammatical, historical approach, and one more allegorical approach. It gave birth to a view that we now today know as replacement theology. And I might be jumping into a question you wanted to ask later, but oh well. It gave birth to that view and that position, which is not really founded in a good understanding of the Bible, and that started to create a bigger divide between the Gentile Christians and the Jews, and this theological anti-Judaism became anti-Semitism. Some laws were created and written over the centuries in early history after the closing of the Bible, the first 3 or 4 centuries after Christ, and that was to protect the Jews, the Christians from the Jews, and of course you've got human nature and the sin nature, and the fact that the people who are not educated and their bishops and priests would tell them, well, we the Christians are doing it this way, the Jews are doing it that way. We have to separate. We cannot, mingle with them. Eventually, it became that they could be dangerous. You have to be careful, and the chasm got bigger and bigger and bigger, and over a period of 1900 years or so, a lot of things happened against the Jews by Christians, pseudo Christians, and other people. And that was what we can call historical anti Semitism. There was a shift at the time of the Holocaust where Hitler introduced the idea of anti Semitism being a racial issue. He really was interested in the law, the science known as eugenics, which has been debunked, not long after it was introduced. And he proposed, and a lot of people believed him, that Jews were a race that needed to be eliminated because they were dangerous. And of course, there was the introduction of several booklets like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion written against the Jews. And so he proposed that this is a race that needs to be eliminated. So that was still this historical anti-Semitism became a racial anti-Semitism, still under the same umbrella. Then, after the Holocaust, maybe in 1948, Israel was born as a nation, and not until the 60s, when Yasser Arafat was introduced into the Middle East was planted there by the USSR, as the Palestinian leader who incidentally, was born in Egypt. He's Egyptian, not Palestinian. But Yasser Arafat was planted there, and he started to promote the false narrative of the Palestinian displaced people, Israeli occupation, colonization. That's when you start seeing the new anti-Semitism take root. And it took a while to take root, but it was a turning, a shift. And you flip-flop the victims and the perpetrators. The Nazis who were going after the Jews, now we've got the Israelis or the Jews in Israel who are the new Nazis of the Middle East, and the Palestinians are the new victims. And this is reflected by a myriad of cartoons and writings about how this shifted. So that's the new anti-Semitism. 2012, an event took place in France, in south of France, in Toulouse, where a man, a Muslim man, went into a Jewish day school, killed a rabbi, and I think it's 2 or 3 of the students. This was the first time that several Jewish people were killed simply for being Jewish. And in my studies, in my research, I think that this is a good point, 2012, to start speaking of end times anti-Semitism. So the end times anti-Semitism is part of the new anti-Semitism, but it's refined as maybe defined as the anti-Semitism that is lethal. Jews are not being killed outside of Israel in terrorist attacks. Jews are being killed in different countries now. That's the end times anti-Semitism, and you can document that, of course. It's not too hard to do. And then, of course, there's one more which we will not be part of after the rapture. I'm pre-mill, pre-trib, so I will be taken in the rapture. That's the 7-year tribulation, the tribulation anti-Semitism, which will probably be the worst of them all. How's that for a short answer?
It's great. It's great. They still need to buy the book, though, because there's plenty of details that are included in the book that we can't cover in an hour. But yeah, I mean, anti-Semitism has taken different forms throughout history. But as you said earlier, it really is satanic. Satan does not want the Jewish people, because the Bible says that in the end, Romans 11, all Israel will be saved. Right. So if that doesn't happen, and Israel doesn't live in the kingdom for 1,000 years, then God's promises are void, right? And Satan won, right? Or at least when it comes to the promise, which is why Satan wants to destroy the Jewish people. But we saw it through the Holocaust, we see it now, God preserves his people. And so that leads kind of to the next question of, who are the Jewish people? How do we know who they are? Can we trace DNA? Like that, I think that's a huge argument from replacement theologians and from different people, anti-Semites, they say that we don't know exactly who the Jewish people are, right? They're imposters in the land. Can we know for
Right.
sure that they're actually the Jewish people from the Bible?
Well, Hitler seemed to know exactly who the Jews were. He didn't have a question about, anybody who had one Jewish grandparent was considered Jewish enough to be killed, according to Hitler. So uh, today there are people that are promoting a view, and I've done, I think, a couple of videos on our YouTube channel on this crazy, crazy view that Jews are descendants of Khazars, the land of Khazaria in Eastern Europe. And in the 8th or 9th century, the king of Khazaria, I think his name was King Bulon, King Bulon decided he was going to investigate in, the three world religions. I want to become religious, and I don't know which way to go. So he got an imam, or a Muslim scholar, a rabbi, and probably a priest at that time, my guess.
Sounds like a
And
joke.
I know an imam, a priest, and a rabbi walk into a bar. I know,
Right.
I know. So he got them three, and the story says that he listened to their argument, and he was most convinced by the rabbi, and he decided to convert to Judaism along with his family. And the story goes that it's anywhere from him and his immediate family to him and his entire kingdom, or something in between. Cannot be proven by, there's really very little historical record on this. I have several books on the topic. It's fascinating, but it's just uh, a way for people to discredit Jewish heritage, to say the Jews in Israel right now, the Israelis, the Jews in Israel, are not real Jews. They are Gentiles, descendants of Gentiles who converted to Judaism, and they have no right to the land of Israel. They're colonizing, they're occupying, they're stealing land from the Palestinians. So that's the reason behind it. But for me, I simply look at a Bible definition, a biblical definition of the Jews. And by the time you're done with the book of Genesis, you have a pretty good idea of who's going to be a Jew. It's going to be a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, through one of the 12 tribes. And sometimes Gentile Christians come to me and they say, well, the New Testament tells us that we're all by faith sons of Abraham now, so we're all Jews. And I say, well, not too quick, not too fast. You being a son of Abraham is not enough to be a Jew. Being a son of Abraham, you could be Isaac or Ishmael. You need to refine that. It's Abraham through Isaac, through Jacob, through the 12 tribes. So a descendant that way. And I don't know. You can do some DNA, and I've done some of that in that video that I did on the Khazars. There's some really good information about DNA that traces all Jews back to Judean Jews from Israel, from Judea originally. The one thing you cannot do is tribal identity, because the tribal identity were kept in the temple, which was destroyed in AD 70. So within probably not the next day, but within a couple of generations, pretty much nobody knew for sure. Nobody could prove it, that's for sure, except of course for the Levites, who have that in their name: Levi, Cohen, Levi. But so DNA, there's a little bit you can do, but the Khazar theory is it's all wet. It absolutely is. Yeah, hogwash.
Yeah. Well, let me I literally heard from somebody, somebody commented on a video I put out about the Khazars, that whole thing. I hear that all over the place. But wouldn't that be, I mean, that explains the Ashkenazi Jews, right? But does that explain the Sephardic and all the different pockets across the world? Like, I mean, even if it was true, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, because there's still other Jewish people living in Israel.
Yes, and you're right that that's a good detail to add, is that the people that actually are claiming that the Jews of today are descendants of Khazars, they are claiming that they're talking about the Ashkenazic Jews. We for the benefit for your audience, the two main groups of Jews are Sephardic Jews, North Africa and Spain, and the Ashkenazi Jews, Eastern Europe. But all of them really originally come from Eretz Israel, the land of Israel.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Is there a genetic marker that can be found in DNA that marks one as a Jewish person?
I want to say there is something that can be done in DNA, but I'm really not an expert. I can point you to a couple of books that I have read for the purpose of that presentation I made, but a lot of it was above my pay grade as far as DNA and genetics is concerned. So I only got what I needed from it.
I asked that because I saw a video by a gentleman who I really respect. It was called DNA and the Mormons. You've ever heard of this before? And no. Um, Basically, what he argues is that he lived in Utah, which is Mormon country, and they argue that they are the 10 lost tribes of Israel, that they came from Israel and came here to the coasts of South America and North America and settled and became the Indians that populated the early American continent. And so what he did was he did DNA testing of as many American Indian tribes as he could and found that there was no Jewish DNA markers within their DNA. And so he went to the Mormons and said, "Hey, what you're arguing is not possible." And several bishops actually left the Mormon faith because of it. I say that to ask this, which that really doesn't mean anything other than there must be some kind of DNA marker within.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. But I'm not. Again, this is not my field of expertise.
Right,
So
right.
I'm
I
not
understand.
gonna. Yeah.
It's not mine either. I was going to ask about Hitler, and this is the only question about him I'm going to ask. He used genetics, but he did it from facial recognition, body types, and that kind of thing to identify the Jewish race. But it's interesting. Where did that really start? It wasn't Hitler's own idea. He came up with it from someone else. Do you know
Well,
who that is?
I don't think he used genetics. He used eugenics.
Eugenics, right?
Eugenics, which is
Right.
different.
Right.
This is a science that really the hair color, the
Exactly.
eye colors, the length of the nose, the chin, the forehead, and which was debunked because it couldn't be trusted as a science.
Right.
I might know where it started, but I'm drawing a blank right now.
Margaret Sanger.
Oh,
And
yes.
she wanted to eliminate all of the races that she, found lacking in human quality. So it's amazing that it really started in America and then was used by Hitler to accomplish his goal. And even
when I speak on and I do a Jewish history seminar with I talk a lot about anti-Semitism, the Jewish history through the eyes of anti-Semitism, and I get to Hitler and eugenics and
Yes.
those facial markers, and then I show a picture of what Hitler considered the perfect Aryan race specimen, and it's a man with a blonde German guy with short blonde hair, nice flat forehead, with a little pointy nose, and little lips and a little chin. That I mean, very very specific facial features, and I show that picture, and then right after it, I show a picture of a undeniably Jewish man. Everybody knows he was Jewish by birth, Kirk Douglas. And that man, you're too young maybe to know who Kirk Douglas is,
of
but
course we know who he is.
no, but he might not know. You might only remember Michael Douglas. Kirk Douglas was his dad. We're of the previous generation, my friend. Anyway, Kirk Douglas looks almost twin brother to the Nazi Aryan specimen. So that's how ridiculous it is. There,
A lot of intellectuals in the 20s, 30s, and 40s from both Britain and America were eugenics. I'm not going to name anybody, but it's well known that many of them conform their ideology to that.
right.
Gabe?
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. I mean, and we can't forget that what we're talking about was 80 years ago.
Right.
Like this isn't like crazy long ago. 80 years ago. I mean, there's still people alive, still Holocaust survivors alive. probably won't be for long. So that's a little shout out to anybody. If you know a Holocaust survivor or know somebody speaking, go hear a survivor story. That's important to keep the story alive, keep it
Very
in our
true.
minds.
Very true.
Never
Um,
forget.
never forget. Let's go to look at question 7. God gave the land provision to Abraham, and by extension, his descendants in Genesis 12, 15, and 18. According to the promise that Israel would possess the land of Canaan, what were the land borders outlined in Genesis 15? And I guess, how does that come to today? Like, how do the land borders is Israel occupying the current land that was promised to them? Have they ever occupied the land that was promised to them? How does that work?
I don't believe they've ever occupied, not even under Joshua or Solomon. I don't believe they've ever occupied. The in Genesis 12 is the promise, and Genesis 15 is the covenant itself. And in the last few verses of 15, on that day Yahweh cut a covenant with Abraham, saying, "To your seed I've given this land from the river of Egypt as far as the great river, the river Euphrates." And then he lists all the people group that form that piece of land: the Kenite, the Kenizzite, the Cadmonite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Rephaim, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Girgashite, and the Jebusite. That land became known as the land of Canaan, maybe because it was one of the biggest group, or it's like the name that popped up. So it became known as the land of Canaan, but really it was the land of all these people group that God pushed away by his own divine decree. That was his prerogative. That's not people doing that. That was God deciding that in his Bible. He gives it there. That piece of land, right now, Israel, if you include the Gaza Strip and if you include Judea, Samaria, for those of you watching, if you don't know what I mean by Judea, Samaria, you probably know it as the West Bank, but the real name is Judea, Samaria. So if you include the Gaza Strip and Judea, Samaria, Israel is about the size of New Jersey, which of course, not including those, it's even smaller. In the millennial kingdom, when those boundaries will be fulfilled, will be realized, it will be twice the size of Texas. So you take two Texas together and put a New Jersey next to it, and you see the difference in size. It's quite something.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact location of it, but there's another description of the land that was allotted to the Jewish people, and it runs from the Euphrates all the way down into Egypt.
Yeah.
And so it's really the origin of the river.
Well, that's it right here, from the river of Egypt as far as the great river of Euphrates.
Yeah, the
It's
river
in
to the
verse
sea,
18.
right there.
Yeah.
The Mediterranean.
And so it's a big piece of land. And you know what's interesting is that they are. I want to go to Deuteronomy real quick. Deuteronomy chapter 2. I just love that passage. I was there in my devotion the other day. Part of the wanderings in the wilderness, and God is talking to the children of Israel. Is talking to Moses, and in Deuteronomy chapter 2, there is. I'm trying to draw a distinction here. I think it's important. You see the way that Islam is trying to push Israel out of Israel, kill the Jews. It has nothing to do with stealing the land, but Islam is not going to be happy until they have what they know as a global caliphate, the kingdom of Islam that encompasses the entire planet. They keep adding to it. There's no end to the land they want to take over and control. It's the whole planet for Islam. And in contrast to that, in Deuteronomy 2, let's see, verse 9, Yahweh said to me, "Do not harass Moab, nor provoke them to war, for I will not give you any of their land as a possession, because I have given Ar to the son of Lot as a possession." And then in verse 5, before that, actually, he's going to go through Esau. And he said, "Do not provoke them, for I will not give you any of their land, even as little as a footstep, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession." 3 times in Deuteronomy 2, God is saying, I have given you specific boundaries. Those are the boundaries that historically I've given you. This will be realized at some point, which of course we know it's in the future. But he's telling the children of Israel early on, don't try to take another foot of anything beyond that, because I will not let you do it. So
Mhm.
that's the difference between what God has decreed and what man is trying to control under Islam. I think it's an important distinction.
Hmm. And that's important to know because if we talk about the promise God made to Abraham, right, that hasn't been fulfilled yet, right? You
No,
can't say that all the land's been given to Abraham. If God literally talked to Abraham, gave the promise to him, then you would expect him to literally fulfill that in completion. And
right.
that hasn't happened yet. You can't say it's
No,
happened yet. And you can't
no.
say it was spiritually happened because then God would be, Galatians 2, I believe, changing his promise, which Galatians 2 says God can't do that. Nobody can do that.
No,
Um,
he's talking about a real piece of land to a real people. It is not a spiritual fulfillment. It's a real thing. And if you take it away, like you just alluded to, if you take it away, then you make God into a covenant breaker, and you make him into a liar. And the minute you make him into a covenant breaker and a liar, then is when Christians who do that, who have no problem doing it between God and Israel, they don't realize that the minute they do that, they put their salvation in jeopardy,
yep.
because their salvation could be God could say, like, well, you know what, we're not saved by grace through faith anymore. You're gonna have to stand on one foot for 6 months in the middle of a fire, and then
Yep.
if you can pass that, then you're saved.
Mhm.
It just, God doesn't change, and because of his character, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And I think that the fact that he has kept his word with Israel is our guarantee that he's going to keep his word with us as believers.
Yep. So would somebody who's an anti-Zionist, right? A Zionist is somebody who supports Israel and the land, and the Jewish people. Is anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, do they go hand in hand? Are they different?
There is a difference, or there should be a noticeable difference between an anti-Zionist and somebody who is not in agreement with everything that the Israeli government is doing. I I'm a Zionist. I'm Jewish. I'm a Zionist. I'm a Christian Zionist. Biblical Zionist. But I don't agree with every move the Israeli government is making. It's anytime you have a government that made of fallen men, fallen creatures, there's going to be corruption at some level, and there's going to be mistakes, and we're not going to agree on everything. So I don't agree with everything, but the anti-Zionists are basically saying that the Jews don't have the right to the land. They don't have the right to exist. And when you tell a
Mhm.
people group you don't have the right to exist simply because they're Jews, that's basically, and I think anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism trying to hide behind a thin veneer of social justice and historical revisionism, but it doesn't hold. I have yet to find somebody who's anti-Zionist and who's not anti-Semitic. Even though they always tell you, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just anti-Zionist. Well, define what you mean. Well, the Jews stole the land, and so I usually ask him. I said, well, where should they go? Because
Mm.
sometimes people tell the Jews, go home. You don't belong here. Well, where is home?
Hmm.
It's Israel. Oh,
That's a
no,
good
no, no, you
question.
can't go there because Israel is Palestine. So where is home? They don't have an answer.
Hmm.
That's become fashionable to be anti-Zionist today.
Of course,
The
of course.
Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, the Steve Bannons of the world, who are all insisting on what you just said, that it's not the Jewish right to have the land. One of the complications that I think people have is all Muslims are not Arabs. Um, but
Not all Muslims are Arabs.
right.
Right.
Um, but one of the problems with their ideology is Muslims believe that once they conquer a land, that it's theirs forever.
Correct.
And
Even if they've been pushed out, they'll get back.
right. And they think that about the land of Israel right now because it was a possession of the caliphate early on, I think the 1400s, somewhere around there. So when did we could go through the whole history of Israel about the um, being removed from the land through the diasporas. several times with the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Romans, and even the British kept them out. So when did Zionism begin? Can you give us a quick overview of the history of Zionism so our listeners have some touch points just real quickly?
You're so funny. Give us a quick history of Zionism in the next 3 minutes.
They can get the rest of it from your book later on.
Yeah, it is in the book.
It is.
And well, there is an event that took place in 1896 in France, the Dreyfus Affair.
Dreyfus.
And a Jewish officer from Eastern France was accused of treason and spying, and he was basically sent to prison. He was tried, sent to prison, and at the time that this took place, the Austrian newspaper, the New Press, sent one of their reporters to just write on, be there for the trials, to write on it, and that man was Theodor Herzl, a Jewish man himself, and Theodor Herzl realized that anti-Semitism was very much alive in France at that time. And the reason why it was important to him to realize that is because this was when Europe was going through the Jewish Enlightenment period, known as the Haskalah, where Jews were being assimilated, accepted into society. And it appeared that finally the Jews could live as French in France, Italians in Italy, Germans in Germany, and not so much be seen as Jews. This was 1896. Now, this has been going back almost 100 years in the making, because the man who actually did that for the Jews was Napoleon. Napoleon, in all of its conquest of Europe, greater Europe, he always was somewhat friendly to the Jews, and he always told the Jews, "Listen, you're a French citizen in society, but at home remain a Jew. You're an Italian citizen in Italy, but at home remain a Jew." And there's all the places that he conquered. He told them the same story, which is interesting because he never made it to Russia, and he never conquered Russia. And you ask Jewish people in Russia, they don't say, "I'm a Russian Jew." If they're Jewish in Russia, they say, "I'm Jewish." But in France, when you ask me, when I was born and raised in France, I say, "I'm a French Jew," because I was born in France. That's just a little side note. So Napoleon started that, and then took about 100 years. Eventually, towards the end of that century, 1896, Jewish people a little before that thought that maybe this was the beginning of the golden era, and like it's going to be better for the Jews. Well, the Dreyfus Affair proved that it was not. And Theodor Herzl wrote this little booklet, Der Judenstaat, the Jewish state, where in it he said that in 5 years, if not in 50 years, there will be a place for Jews to go back in Eretz Israel, in the land of Israel. And
He's
what's
a prophet.
Well, I don't believe in modern day prophets, but in a
Pretty
sense,
close.
but that's a hard one, because in 1897, when he published the book, you add 50 to that, and you get to 1947. In November, I don't know the exact day, but in November of 1947 is when the vote to partition Israel took place at the UN.
Exactly.
And that's back when the UN was actually a good organization. You're looking at almost 80 years ago. But things have changed, of course. So yes, he was what he said was, you could say, was prophetic in a sense, but he realized it's not safe for the Jews. So he was the father of Zionism. There's many different Zionism, and there's actually a few people before him. And I give more details in the book, because before him there was a man known as Leon Pinsker, but we don't have time for that. But there is cultural Zionism, there is political Zionism, there is Christian Zionism. There's all kinds of Zionism, but what they all have in common is that they realize that Israel is the ancestral to some they say biblical, but if they don't believe in God, they don't even say that. But at very least they say ancestral land
True.
that belongs to the Jews. And of course, you have to add to that, which I cover in the book, several different important pieces of historical papers that were published. One being the Balfour Declaration in 1917. The other one was a decision that was made legally in San Remo, Italy, at the 1920 San Remo Conference. All those things put together, build a very good case for Israel having the right to exist, not just biblically, but also legally, which is a big deal. And actually, the San Remo Conference of 1920, even though it builds on the 1917 Balfour Declaration that came out of the United Kingdom, the Great Britain, has a better it has a better foundation and makes a better case for Israel to legally have right to the land. And it's not as known as the Balfour Declaration, but it's a very important time in history. So that's when Zionism was born, kind of. But really, if you really want to be biblical, I say this tongue in cheek, but I believe it. God was the first Zionist.
Was that the impetus then for people to start moving back to the Holy Land? And
Yeah.
Has there always been a presence of Jews in the Holy Land?
There's always been a presence of
Always
Jews,
present.
an ebb and flow, thick and thin. But the Jewish people actually starting going back to the Holy Land, known then as Palestine, and this could be the topic of another question, I'm sure. But they were going back I think the first Aliyah, as they call them, the first return was in 1880 or 1881, and they were as the results of what we know as the pogroms, the government-sponsored riots against the Jews out of Eastern Europe. So this is where my great-grandmother, Rachel Shimkovitz, moved away from Russia to land in France, and our family was born in France after that. Because of the pogroms, the story of Fiddler on the Roof, that's a pogrom in a movie here. And so those were the different returns, the different aliyahs that took place starting in 1880. So you could say that maybe almost 20 years prior to the birth of Zionism proper, the Jews were already going back to the land of Palestine, as it was called back then.
Yep.
All right, we need
And
to
then
push on,
I think
Gabe,
people.
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll push on. But I think people need to understand that the extent of it was crazy. But I mean, as you said, anti-Semitism has gone on forever, right? I mean, every time the Dreyfus affair, the Jewish people they've wanted to live side by side, and it doesn't work for some reason. It's ununderstandable. It's satanic. People, even Christians throughout history, we can talk about that. Christians throughout history have been anti-Semitic towards Jews, Jewish people. I just watched I don't know if you've heard about, but there was a documentary talking about it was 1400s, 2,000 kids, Jewish kids, were shipped off, taken from their families to populate an island, right, by themselves. You can look it up. It's a good documentary, but it was crazy. But that has been going on forever. And so when the Holocaust happens, it creates that perfect atmosphere afterwards to create the nation of Israel, 1948. I don't believe that could have happened any other time. Couldn't happen today, right? You can't get the United Nations to agree on a nation of Israel today.
No, it could happen today. Well, the nation of Israel, I believe that the rebirth of the nation of Israel in 1948 is a prerequisite for prophecy being fulfilled in the end times. I don't think there is a verse. The verse that says, "Can a nation be born in one day?" I think is a reference to the Jewish people all coming to faith at the end of the tribulation, but not a reference to the rebirth of Israel in 1948. And people have different views on that. But the rebirth of Israel in 1948 was a prerequisite for things to happen, like in Ezekiel 36, the Jews going back to the land in unbelief.
Some people call it a super sign.
Yeah, going back to what land? From where? From the diaspora to the land of Israel. So the land of Israel has to exist. So I don't know if you know that, Scott, but I think it was 20 or 30 years prior to 1948. Moody was started in what, 1891, I think, something like that. And D.L. Moody got together with whoever, the professors and the board or whatever, and they said we need, and it was not right away, but maybe 10 years into the institute, they said we need to start a Jewish studies program
Mhm.
when we train pastors and missionaries to reach out to Jewish people. And a lot of people look at him going like, well, why would we want to do that? And then
Mhm.
the consensus was, well, we know from scripture that one day the Jews are going to go back to the land of Israel, and we need to be able to be equipped to reach them. So they started a Jewish studies program to do outreach to the Jews probably 30 years before Israel even existed as a modern nation, in faith for what the scripture was telling them, which I think is
Hmm.
wonderful.
Gabe told me we have about 10 minutes left. So I want to really get to an important discussion here. How important is hermeneutics to this concept of anti-Semitism, especially amongst Christian people?
Critical, not just to anti Semitism, to everything we do with the Bible.
Right, but our topic is anti-Semitism.
Right. But no, but that's it's the reason why I'm saying this is because I don't want people to go like, well, I'm not really studying anti-Semitism. I'm not going to worry about it. Hermeneutics is the approach of how we read our Bible, and if we don't read our Bible, with the proper approach, it could mean something for you, or something for Gabriel, or for me that's completely different, and then we can change our mind tomorrow. It's got to be a consistent grammatical, historical approach in the context. That is going to give us the intent of the authorial intent, and of course it requires study and and comparison and commentary, but we have to have that approach that is a literal approach.
So a wrong hermeneutic is what leads to people thinking that the church has replaced Israel.
Exactly. A wrong hermeneutics will lead to replacement theology.
Mhm.
And it's when people start looking at a story and they go like, the tall tree was next to the red barn. If somebody was to say, well, it was not really a tree, it was a car, but he called it a tree. I don't know why. And the red barn was really a boat. So it was a car that was right next to a boat. And people would look and say, no, the guy said there was a tall tree next to a red barn. Why would you want to change that? That's what people do with the Bible.
Yep. Yeah. Do we think biblically, is there any justification for anti-Semitism ending anytime soon? Is it going to decrease? What
No,
can we expect for the future?
I don't think it's going to decrease. I think right now is the perfect time for Christians to to not repeat history and be bystanders like many were 80 years ago. It's the
Right.
perfect time for Christians um, to apply a principle found in Matthew 25:31 through 46, the sheep and the goats. That's something that's going to take place during the tribulation, where
Right.
Gentiles will be left behind, they'll get saved, and as a result of their salvation, it's not salvation by works, but as a result of their salvation, they are going to reach out to Jewish people and protect them, provide for them, and shelter them. And that's the Jews that are going to survive the tribulation because of Gentiles. And there, to me, when I look at them, I mean, when the King returns, Jesus, Yeshua, he calls them the righteous. They are to me the new righteous among the nations, like the righteous among the nations who hid my mother when she was 16 after her dad was taken by the Gestapo, put her on the south of France farm for 2 years, and their name is actually Ayad Vashem in Jerusalem. They're righteous among the nations. They saved my mother and her two cousins.
Awesome.
Same idea. That event that is going to take place. We need to apply that principle today. Christians today need to go to their Jewish friends and
Yes.
tell them, "Hey, I'm a Christian. I love you. I read my Bible. I want to be available. If you need anything, I've got your back."
Mhm.
Jewish people need to know there are Christians who care, because right now it looks like everybody's against the Jews. But anti-Semitism, no, is not going to slow down. It's going to continue. It's going to get worse. And that's why Christians have a great opportunity to reach out to the Jewish people. And it's a mix. It's a mix of being able to do things that are categorized as humanitarian, which there's nothing wrong with that. And there are some organizations that advertise on TV that do humanitarian work for Jews bring him back to Israel, but they only do humanitarian work. They don't believe in Jesus. So the problem was that if you only do humanitarian work, then all you're doing is sending somebody to hell on a full stomach. We have to include the gospel.
Based on that, let me ask you one more final question because we're running out of time here really quickly. And we want to give you some time at the end to share your schedule and all of that. There's a lot of hype around Donald Trump's peace agreement that he's engineered over in Israel right now. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but how do you think that relates to what the Bible teaches about the future end time events? And do you think there's any chance of this peace lasting through into the beginning of the tribulation, or are we going to go back to the same old in a short period of time? I mean, just in the last couple of days, Hamas has slaughtered a bunch of people in Gaza. So what are your thoughts?
I'm excited about the return of the hostages. How can you not be? I'm on my way to Israel.
That's good.
I'm going to be in Israel in 3 days. And so I'm really excited. I'm taking a group. I go there 2 or 3 times a year for mission trips, and we do things with our ministry to help the IDF and bring him supplies. And it's open doors for the gospel, which are amazing. And, you know, I've got stories maybe for another time. But Trump's plan, well, from the perspective of getting the live hostages back, that's a success. But that was phase one. Part of what comes after is all the dead bodies coming back. 28 dead bodies. I believe as of today, maybe 5 have returned. One of them was a Palestinian dressed with an IDF uniform. So it's like they think that Israel is that stupid. They're going to go like, okay, we got 5. Forensics showed very quickly he was not one of theirs.
Right.
So it shows you Hamas's true colors in case people were still thinking that Hamas had reformed and had this, okay, we're not going to kill anymore. No, they're still going to want to kill. Their charter is the same. They want to kill the Jews, and they actually want to go, you know, against the Christians as well when they're done with the Jews. So they're right now they're having sectarian killing, different clans killing each other because Hamas wants to control the narrative even within their own people, Muslims in general. So they're bloodthirsty, evil people. The plan is probably not going to work, but the plan is setting the stage. If it works for a little while, it sets the stage for a broadening of the Abraham Accords. And the Abraham Accords, I think, will set the stage for the covenant made between the Antichrist and Israel right after the rapture. That marks the beginning of the tribulation of Daniel 9:20, 27, 25 through 27. But to maybe, and I don't know if you're going to get a lot of emails disagreeing with me, but I don't think Trump is the Antichrist. Okay.
What?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh man, thought this was it.
He is. He has too big of an ego. I voted for him. I think he's the best alternative right now that we have to bring America back to something that's, more conservative and have Judeo-Christian values. But I think he's got an ego problem. And the problem is, I think Trump, and I said that in the video, the last 2 videos I put on our YouTube channel, Trump is a businessman. That's good and that's bad. It's good because from the beginning, nobody could buy him. He was a very, very wealthy businessman. Nobody within the political realm could buy him and say, hey, you know what? If you sign on this, if you do this our way, there's money for you. He never cared about the money. The money never was an issue because he doesn't need any. And he's a businessman. So that's, in many ways, he knows how to deal with people. The problem is you cannot deal in the Middle East like you deal with the West because you have 2 different ideologies. And if you think you're going to be able to negotiate or even appease in the Middle East, then what you need to understand is that your negotiations and your appeasement is seen as a weakness, not a peacemaking. It's just a weakness that's just going to put you in a place to, what can we do now that they're weak to hurt them when it hurts. So I don't think it's going to take it. It might last for a little while. I hope it does because Israel could use some rest. But I don't think it's going to take. And if Hamas continues to play the game of we don't know where the rest of the bodies are and we need more time and they need more time to regroup and reorganize, then I think Israel is going to come to a place where they're going to have to say, okay, enough is enough. We're done, and level the place.
Well, part of Islamic ideology is you can lie to your opponent, your enemy, to make advancements for the Muslim faith, and
That's what they call taqiyya. Yeah, that's the
Yes,
lying
right.
lying to your lying
Right.
to the infidels. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's interesting stuff. And looking at the deal, like it really was a master. Like it took a lot to negotiate that. Took a lot to negotiate that, and we see where it's gotten us to, which is I think is a good place for now. But let's finish up. If you want to share places where our listeners can go to hear more about you, to find your book, to find all that kind of stuff, where would you like to direct them?
The book you can get the book anywhere books are sold in Christian bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon. Right now, if people order it on Amazon, there is a discount, and it's also making its way slowly but surely to become a number one bestseller, that would really help on Amazon because that would really give us a lot more exposure, which is what I really hope we can do. So if you have a choice, order it on Amazon. Our website is shalominmessiah.com, shalominmessiah.com. We have I have a YouTube channel with over 1,100 videos, a lot of different guests, Dr. Andy Woods, Tom Hughes, Brendan Holthouse, a lot of people, great men of faith, great teachers, and other teachings from a Jewish perspective, a lot of things on end times Israel and anti-Semitism. So go there. It's Shalom and Messiah Ministries, the YouTube channel. If you tap my name on YouTube, you'll find me that way as well, Olivier Melnick. You can also follow me on Telegram. I post daily on Telegram the news about Israel, what's going on, and Instagram, X, Facebook, all the usual suspects. We're everywhere. And all the other books that I've written are also all on Amazon, all 7 books. And that's pretty much it.
Do you have anything going on in
Shalom.com. No, sorry.
anything going on in your speaking schedule that's coming up?
Well, I just got back from a conference in Oklahoma, but my speaking schedule it's going to slow down. I will be at the pre-trib. I'm speaking at the pre-trib. Will you be there, Scott?
Gabe will be.
Okay.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
At least for a day, the first day.
Yeah. I'll be which day?
Probably Monday.
Okay, yeah. I think I'll be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think I'm speaking Wednesday morning, so you'll miss me. But I'll be at the pre-trib, and it's starting next year. I'm picking up again. I'm trying to do like prophecy conferences. So I'll be at the 5-year anniversary of Dr. Andy Woods. I think it's February 20th or 22nd, something like that.
I believe that's correct.
And so I'll be there, and then several after that, and of course it's filling up. So I don't keep a calendar on our website for security reasons, actually.
Sure. That makes sense. Well, we're going to go ahead and pray for you, and we want to thank you, and hopefully we can do this again.
I'd love that.
It was fun. So let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for Olivier, and we pray, Father, for him, for his safety, for his safe travels, Father, for his speaking, that he would have good voice, good mindset. Help him, Lord, to be effective in his ministry, to point people to the fact that they should love Jesus as believers and love the Jewish people because Jesus was a Jew. And help us, Father, to support our Jewish friends and neighbors. Help us, Lord, to love them. And help us, Father, to learn more about them, not only from the Old Testament, but from the many books that Olivier has written and many others. So we thank you for his ministry. We thank you for his time, Lord, and ask you to bless him as you promised that you will bless Israel and bless those who bless Israel as well. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Book Podcast. If you liked what you heard and want to support us, like, follow, subscribe on any podcasting platform, on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Simply type in @HearTheBookPod, @HearTheBookPod. Thank you. See you next time.